Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and the New York Rangers had their breakup day with the media on Monday, and it was also announced this week that president and general manager of the team, Chris Drury, signed a multi-year extension to remain in those roles, much to this, to the, much to the dismay of many Rangers fans, I'm sure. Um, Previously, I've been a big defender of Drury. Um, it wasn't until this year that I become skeptical of him and his trades, the players that he identifies as solutions, long-term fixes for the Rangers. Everything before I was fine with, including how he handled, the Barclay Goodrow situation and Jacob Trouba. The only issue I had was the fact that he didn't get rid of Trouba on July 1st and that he waited for it until December of 2024 to get rid of him. That put a significant roadblock in front of the Rangers in terms of improving on where they were from last season, or now 2 seasons ago because the season is over. Um, but one thing that is really interesting, I've heard from a few people now, is that the Rangers don't often announce come out with a statement that their general manager is signing a contract extension. That doesn't usually happen. And some people have theories because James Dolan is now getting more involved. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, you could argue that. I'm not going to touch on that, but James Dolan, they said he was involved in exit interviews, and him announcing that is just saying the theory is that it's just saying that Drury's in charge, he's the boss, and that's it. If you have a problem with it, you could leave or request to be traded or whatever. Um, that I understand. Yeah, I like that because it shows that who's in charge, who's the boss here, right? But that should be given, right? Like we shouldn't have this discussion of, oh, who's in charge? Who's in charge? No, I'm going against you. Like you're an authority figure, but screw you. I don't care. I don't like how you treated my friend, so I'm going against you. Every GM in the NHL or president has that level of authority, don't you think? I would think so. It's not like the players shouldn't be stepping all over them. I mean, at this, like, just from that, that's just I wouldn't be, like, jumping in the streets like, "Yeah, Drury's the guy. Drury's the guy." But, like, that's just because that's just a given. If you're the GM and the president, you're supposed to be the authority figure. You're supposed to be the boss. You're supposed to be calling the shots and, making the moves that need to be made, even if they're difficult. Right? Like, I'm not looking at this as a like, "All right, now I like this guy's attitude. He's gonna save the Rangers." That's not what I'm looking at it as. What I am looking at it as is, Drury's in charge, right? And if he continues to do what he did last season and, like, force players out, he could get un out from under, like, some bad contracts, like Zibanejad, for example, Kreider. And we're saying that Kreider's a bad contract now because of the season he just had. Before it wasn't so bad, right? Um, so Drury being here, I mean, I think he did a decent job before this season. The problem is, I've said it before, and I think a couple of people have brought it up too on online that he's both the president and the general manager. I wish he had those roles split. Like maybe he's just the president, or maybe he's just the general manager, and give the other role to somebody else because it's a lot to handle. As president, he's president of hockey operations, so he could put, he has his list of players that he wants, and they're gonna go out and identify those players and go and get them. I mean, this year, for example, like it just there's 3 examples. There were 3 players that they wanted that they ended up getting that they were scouting for a while. Juuso Parssinen was one of them, Will Borgen's another one, and, um, Carson Soucy. Those are the 3 guys. I mean, none of those guys really move me, so I don't think they move many fans within the Rangers community, Rangers fan base. So I'm skeptical of that in that regard. I think that it would have been nice if they did something like what the Kraken just did. They just named Jason Botterill, who was the assistant GM. They named him the GM, and then they promoted Ron Francis to president. I think that's what it would happen. I just want to double check to make sure I got my facts straight. Um, Jason Botterill. So let's see what happened here. Yeah, Botterill was named the GM and Francis was promoted to the president, and that came a day after they fired Dan Bylsma, as their coach. That's what I was looking for the Rangers to do, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now you're stuck with Drury, right? Basically, that's how it goes. So you just gotta hope as a fan, you just gotta hope that you gotta work with what you have here and hope he could come through. Before, I mean, he did an okay job identifying players as fixes. Like, I liked the short-term players that he went out and acquired as fixes, and I don't think he gave up too much in trades to get those players. It was just draft capital. That was the biggest asset that he wasted. It's this season, the issues with Drury are from this season, people will say like, "Okay, he's too ruthless." Okay, I get that. We'll touch on the communication aspect in a little bit when we go through the player quotes from breakup day. Um, he's too ruthless, that's one of them. Then it's the players he brought in to fix the issues here. This season were complete non-factors except for JT Miller. But in years prior, they were pretty good. Like Tarasenko was a need. Maybe Patrick Kane was a reach. Nico Mikkola, boy, the Rangers really should have kept him. How good would that have been as a sixth defenseman? The Rangers have so many bottom pair defensemen, and none of them really move you as effective pieces. I did an exercise on Big Apple Hockey's podcast on their show the other day, where we ranked each of the Rangers defensemen, where they would be, what position they would play, like a first pair or a first pair, second pair, third pair, or bottom pair, or extra defenseman, where they would rank on a Stanley Cup winning team. And the Rangers, pretty much more than half of their defensemen are at least, at most, bottom pair. The only top pair defenseman is Adam Fox. The only middle pair is Keandre Miller, possibly Braden Schneider, and then everybody else is just a sixth or seventh defenseman. That's it. So if you have Mikkola, that would have been good. Plus, he was cheap contract for Florida. Now you have Soucy making $3 million, Vakanainen making 1.5, Borgen's making over $4 million. It's a lot of money tied up there for guys that really aren't doing anything. So that side of it, this season and probably last season, questionable. And then the communication thing. As well as of course, I've said before, my main gripe with Drury is the opportunities that he didn't swing on. Didn't trade for Jake Gensel, didn't trade for Matthew Tkachuk, didn't trade for Jack Eichel. And I mean, people will always argue like those names weren't realistic, like they weren't never options for the Rangers. But if they're available, you have to go out and get them. You have to. You have to force the other team to consider that offer. You give up what you need to do it. The Panthers had a franchise record season. They had a President's Trophy winning season, and they traded they traded their franchise leader. He just set the single season record in points for the franchise, and they traded him away for Matthew Tkachuk. And now they're perennial cup contenders because of that trade. Directly because of that trade. Completely changed the dynamic of everything in that organization because they swung big. That's what the Rangers needed to do, and they didn't do it. They never did it. So we'll move on. I'll come back to Drury in a little bit, but I want to talk about some of the quotes from breakup day from some of the players. So the first guy I wanted to talk about was Adam Fox, and he had a couple notable things to say. The first thing was that he said he admitted that Jacob Trouba at the beginning of the season, he said that it was tough to lead the Rangers because of all the things that were going on. So that tells me without a shadow of a doubt that the outside noise or internal noise, whatever you wanna call it, that creeped into the Rangers locker room, and it absolutely 100% affected their play. Maybe not, like, the only reason they were so bad this season, but a major one. I'd say the biggest reason why, and the fact they couldn't put it behind them is pretty damning. That's that's not good. Then there was another quote here. Um, this was this to me, I mean, of the Rangers leadership group, this was one of the more, like, accountable quotes, and, man, I'm sick and tired of players, like, people saying accountability from the players, and then they have these good quotes, and they do nothing with it. Like, I like Vincent Trocheck, right? He has the potential to be a great leader in the Rangers room, possibly a captain, possibly. But when you say these things like, "All right, we need to take a look in a mirror. Year was unrecognizable. I wasn't very good. Like we just got to come back and be better." And then you go back out on the ice and it's more of the same. That's not accountability. That's fake. That's like this is like if you're a Mets fan and you go back to the Mickey Callaway days. When he first came in, he raved about accountability. Were any of those teams really that good? No. I mean, in 2019, yeah, they were competing, but there was no accountability whatsoever. Not when the bullpen was, blowing leads, not from Mickey Callaway when when he screwed up managerial decisions with the lineups and who was pitching, who he took out. It was just everything was disguised because of that word, accountability. It was just a mask that they wore. It's not real accountability. Zibanejad saying, "Oh, yeah, this was not the performance this season that I'd really wanted. I wish this year had gone differently." That's not accountability. I will believe you when you put your money where your mouth is. So none of these quotes really moved me at all. The only thing that moved me was what Zach Jones said. Like he complained earlier in the year that, you know, he wasn't getting the ice time. He thought it was wrong or whatever. And, he should have been playing. And then he said, listen, I said what I said. I don't take it back. But I shouldn't have said it to you guys, to the media, because I didn't wanna put the organization in a bad spot, but he meant what he meant. That was the most mature response by any of the Rangers, and that's pretty telling, and it's coming from one of the younger guys. But anyways, Adam Fox, this quote stood out to me. He said, quote, "Everyone has to really look in the mirror. This year was unrecognizable from the team that made the conference finals 2 the past 3 years." Why is that? Why? Because the outside noise crept in? Because you cracked under pressure? Because you were leaderless? That's the thing. Yeah, the communication, sure, could have been better. But at the end of the day, you need to go out there and you need to perform. That's your job as players. Steve Valiquette said that. Brian Boyle said that. Another quote, Mika Zibanejad. Man, this was so frustrating. So frustrating. He's very introspective, soft spoken, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, personally, that's like how I would answer a question. If I'm looking at all things, I assess a full situation. I get that. Absolutely. But that's not what the Rangers need right now. They needed him to perform, and he didn't do that for the first 3 months of the season. And when he's making $8.5 million with a letter on his jersey and saying that the first few months were the toughest he's ever been through mentally, that leaves a lot to be desired. That's not what the Rangers need. The Rangers desperately, Need to move on from somebody like that. I hate to break it to people. I've been a huge defender of Zibanejad before. I once thought he could have been a captain, the captain of the Rangers because of his 2019-2020 season. After that, it's kind of been downhill. Just that's not what the Rangers need. He's frustrated with the communication. It sounds like he owned up to his performance and asked for more transparency from the organization. Listen to this quote. Listen to this. He said, this was from Vince Mercogliano, his tweet. He had this to say, among other things, about the divide between the Rangers, players, and management. Quote, it starts with us players. We have to take ownership of what we do and how we go about things. But I think it has to be cohesive with everyone. This organization doesn't work without the players. The organization for us players doesn't work for the people that work above us. We have to work together as well, and we have to look at it and we have to talk about it. I understand this. I do. But what Steve Valiquette said was like perfect. That this is what he said was an ice cold take, pretty much. I want to find this. When accountability is shared by everyone, it's usually owned by no one. Managers manage, coaches coach, players play. That line's been blurred for the Rangers. Then Brian Boyle on the Up in the Blue Seats podcast was saying, "That's not your job. Your job is not to see what's going to happen with your friends or your teammates. Your job is to go on the ice and perform, especially at that cap hit. You're wearing a letter on your jersey and you're not performing for the first 3 months of the season. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. You can't be worrying about, oh, is Kreider going to get traded now? Oh, Chris, can you let me know what's going to happen with me? Like, oh, what's going to happen with Trocheck or what's going to happen with my buddy Kreider? Is he going to get traded now? No, you can't do that. He's not obligated. Chris Drury is not obligated to tell Zibanejad, to tell the other players what's going on. Only to the players themselves. The Tampa Bay Lightning forced Ryan McDonagh out. They went to him and said, listen, we're going to trade you. We're going to waive you, and Columbus is going to pick you up. Or you could waive your no trade clause and you could go somewhere else. This is the cap situation we have. We need to move on from you. We can't afford you anymore. That's what they did. He had no problem with it. The players in the locker room had no problem with it. And that's it. They moved on. And not only did they move on, they got him back like one season later. So miss me with all that. It's about the way it was handled, BS. It's Barclay Goodrow. The Rangers could not afford to keep him. We're still talking about it 1 year later. Not even a year later. We're still talking about it. Like it's the biggest thing, the biggest knife to the back in the Rangers locker room. They felt betrayed by that. You got to move on from that. Move on. Yeah, I get it. Being told 15 minutes before it actually happens sucks. I get that. But that's a business. I mean, Tampa Bay was lucky to have someone like Brisebois that was kind of open about it. I mean, Drury was ruthless about it. You can't expect that from everybody. That's ridiculous that you're letting it drag on for that long. And understand it from Drury's perspective too. He's got a job. He's got to make the team better. It was very clear to Chris Drury that the Rangers were not good enough to win the Stanley Cup. Even though they had a franchise record season in the regular season, won the President's Trophy, had a great start to the playoffs, but then teetered out against the Panthers. He could tell that the Rangers needed to make more moves. He needed to make more changes. And he couldn't do that if he had Barclay Goodrow's contract and Jacob Trouba's contract on there. They had no cap space to make any moves. He had to move on from him. Yeah, and you can argue that, well, Drury signed that contract. He shouldn't have given it to him in the first place, or he shouldn't have given him a no trade clause. I understand that, but I don't care about years ago when he signed it. When Drury signed Goodrow, he thought he was going to help them more than being like a fourth line center. He thought he was going to be a third liner. It didn't work out that way. It did not work out that way. So you got to look at it from the here and now at that time. Drury needed to move on from Goodrow, and he had to do it that way. That was the only way he was going to be able to move without retaining salary. You have to understand it from Drury's perspective if you're a fan. The players don't need to understand that. It's not their business. The only thing person it concerns is Barkley Goodrow. Uh, Dimitri says, just joining now. Great show as always. Inexcusable Drury resigning. Should have hired a new GM who would have hired a new coach. Listen, I agree. I agree. But the fact of the matter is, James Dolan and Chris Drury are this. They're together. I think Vince Mercogliano said they're in lockstep. One thing Drury did good was finagling certain contracts. Yeah, like how he got rid of Jacob Trouba with no salary retention and he got assets back. We talked about this on the show when the trade happened. That's a miracle. We all said that he's going to have to retain 50% of that salary or buy out the contract. He didn't have to do any of that. And he got an asset back. Crazy. Like, oh, to acquire Kane and Tarasenko given zero available dollars, that was something. Trading Trouba. Yes. Yeah. And getting Tarasenko. He didn't none of those trades, the most he gave up in a trade was the Andrew Copp trade. And that to me wasn't even that much. Yeah, you gave up the first round pick, but it was a conditional one. You made it to the conference finals, and Copp played a big role in that. Right? Morgan Barron. Yeah, what was he going to do for the Rangers? They weren't using him. They had to trade him. Sammy Blais, when they traded him for Tarasenko and Mikkola, not doing anything. Hunter Skinner, same thing. He made the most out of those trades. I understand. Like, I get it. He's made some good moves, some solid moves. No long-term moves, but Drury long-term based on this season, I don't think it's the way to go. And I don't think the Rangers organization, it's only up to James Dolan. He feels very comfortable with Drury, and I think it's going to be a long-standing relationship with him. Knowing the relationship is so strong between those two, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately for, other Rangers fans. Trading Trouba, but not doing anything to show for it. Yeah. Um, but like I was saying before about understanding it from his perspective, he needed to improve the team. And the only way to do that was by moving on from Goodrow's contract. And the players don't need to know when that trade is or when that move is going down. They didn't need to know when Trouba was getting traded. It didn't concern them. So why is there this such a hyper fixation on them? His biggest issue was not trading Trouba at the time that he needed to trade him. He should have did what he did in the offseason. He said, "We're going to waive you if you don't accept the trade." And that was it. That was it. He threatened him with waivers. Sometimes having cap space is good for nothing when you can't acquire anyone mid-season. Should have traded Trouba in June. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because then they would have had cap space to sign maybe Gensel, or even if you don't sign Gensel and you do trade for Riley Smith, you could sign all those defensemen that you want that were available. Matt Roy was available. Sean Walker was available. Montour was available if you wanted to go out and spend money on him. You could have traded for Jacob Chikrin. There were guys that could have upgraded the defense. The Rangers just didn't do that because they had Trouba's salary on there. They doubled down with the roster and they made zero changes. That was the biggest issue there. So he could fix the team. He's just got to make the hard decision. He's got to get rid of Zibanejad. I'm sorry, it has to happen. He has to. Way too soft for them. Way too sensitive. I get that that's who he is as a person, but it's not what the Rangers need right now, and they need to move on from him. If anybody's going to be able to get that contract from off the Rangers, it's going to be Chris Drury. I don't think there's any other GM in the league that could do it without retaining salary. I mean, maybe that means this might be a little too much to say, but maybe that means even becoming even more ruthless, buying into that toxic work environment, which sounds really harsh. Uh, but if it forces Zibanejad out, it makes the Rangers better, gives them more flexibility long term. You have to understand JT Miller and Zibanejad are signed to the same year length of the contract, right? If you move one of those contracts, it becomes so wide open in the future cap wise for the Rangers. And the cap is going up. The Rangers need to take advantage of that as much as they can. In addition to that goes without saying, Chris Kreider, they have to trade. Um, but let's but let's blame Larry Brooks for letting Trouba know it's Detroit. Yeah, we could. We could do that. And that wasn't from the Rangers side of things. If you're saying like, "Oh yeah, Drury leaked that." No way. Absolutely no way. I have more faith in Drury than Steve Yzerman. I don't know what Steve Yzerman's doing over there in Detroit. He definitely got it from Detroit side of things. No possible way that it came from the Rangers side of things. Never. No way. Um, one last player I want to go through is Vincent Trocheck, and he seems to be the no nonsense guy in that locker room. Listen to this quote here. This was reading the tweet from Molly Walker. Vincent Trocheck on all the outside noise from this season. Well, I think it's on us inside this room in order to make sure that the outside noise doesn't get to us, whether that's talking to somebody individually or if it's just sticking together as a team and as a family. And I think we can get better at that. Lifting guys up instead of bringing guys down. I think that goes a long way. I love this quote. But again, it goes back to what I was saying before is that I'm not going to put too much value in this until I see a difference in performance on the ice, right? And I got to wait till next season for that because there's nothing going on right now. And Trocheck was the master at this. He had the best quotes all season long, right? Like he brought the media in and he addressed like those locker room rumors that they were bashing Drury. And he said, listen, you got to understand Drury's perspective. Like he's got a business, he's got to run. Like he's got things, his job, he's got to do his job. We just need to do our job. We're not sitting here bashing him. We have to go out and do our job. And Trocheck just didn't do that this season. He was terrible in every sense of the word. Now, if Trocheck can keep doing these quotes and go out and perform the rest of his contract like he did 2 seasons ago, his career year, the 70-point year, you gotta name him captain. I mean, if he's gotta put up, but he's gotta do that every single year, and I think he's capable of doing that. He's the glue on the team. That's who he is at best. I think the Rangers can get him to do that. That's me being optimistic here. I know a lot of people don't want to have any optimism based on how this season went, but you got to move on from this season. It's over. It's done. There's nothing you could do to change it. And what the Rangers need to do is the same thing. They need to move on from that. Trocheck, like I said, seems like he's a no nonsense guy. He could be a great captain, should be the captain if he's able to perform the way that he did 2 seasons ago. And that's got to be every single year. Every single year has to be like that. His best season needs to be his norm. And that's asking for a lot. But I think if anyone could do it, it's Trocheck. I'm not going to be expecting 120-point seasons from Panarin every single year. He had never hit 100 points before that in his career. But like 50, 60 points, like 10-point increase for Trocheck is not that much. I mean, Panarin had like a 30-point increase in his career year 2 seasons ago, right? Like almost 50 goals. It's more realistic to think that Trocheck could provide that than Panarin can. Uh, yeah, you're right. It came from Detroit. Good point. From the leaks. Yeah, exactly. Um, moving on. Also on breakup day, I heard a lot of Rangers are playing through injuries. Like Braden Schneider had a torn labrum. This blew my mind, man. Blew my freaking mind. He was in a brace. And then he told the reporters, "Yeah, I've been dealing with this since 2022, 2023." You had a torn labrum for 3 seasons? 2 seasons? How? How are you playing through that? And then he said, yeah, I was hesitant to with my physicality." That's Schneider's game. And the injury took that away from him. How is no one on the Rangers staff saying, "Yeah, let's take him out. Let's put Zach Jones in." Like, Braden, I know you really want to play, but let's put the guy that's at 100% in there. You're not playing at your best. Like, I admire all hockey players that, you know, will die on the ice. I admire that. Full stop. But we got to change that. We have to change. I don't know, probably a hockey culture thing. We have got to change that. It's one thing if it's like a must-win playoff game, like a game 7, and you're like Bergeron with cracked ribs. But it's a completely different thing when you're in mid-season in like December or January. That's not a must-win game. Get your ass out of the lineup. Go rest. Go sit on the couch. Why are you playing in that game? Chris Kreider too. Yeah, had a back injury. Then he had an ear issue that turned into vertigo. Played through that. And then he had a hand issue. Tried playing through that again. And then went on injured reserve. How is he not on injured reserve for longer? How is he not on LTIR? And there was no one to ask that question because no one was available. That is infuriating. Infuriating. I'm like living in the Twilight Zone. There's no one has any answers for that. No, it's like no one is like, wow, this guy is injured. Let's take him out of the lineup. Why not take him out of the lineup? No, nothing. Dead radio silence, nothing. No one bats an eye at that. How? How does no one bat an eye at that? That was the most frustrating thing that came out on Monday to me. That was more frustrating than what Zibanejad said about communication, the players not taking accountability. That playing through injury. How? How does no one on that team look at this situation and say, this is a bad idea. Let's not put Schneider through that. He's obviously in pain. Kreider's obviously in pain and not at 100%. And how do you not recognize that Brennan Othman is a better fit at 100% than Kreider at 40%? How do you not recognize that? That is so infuriating to me. Plenty of opportunity to say, like, to give it to the younger guys, to another player. But when Edstrom gets hurt, it's like, all right, yeah, he's got to come out. He's got to come out. Yeah. He gets the surgery, and he'll be ready for next season. My God, it's so frustrating. So frustrating. But you know what's not frustrating? The New York Mets, man. Maybe last night was frustrating, but the New York Mets are freaking awesome, man. This, like, a complete night and day difference from what we watched with the Rangers. The Mets are just absolutely killing it. They had no business winning last night's game, and they almost pulled it out. They almost did until Stanek blew it in the 9th. And thank you, Jeff McNeil, for botching that ground ball. Dude, Jake Irvin owned the Rangers. Jake Irvin owned the Mets again. And as soon as they take him out, the Mets strike. They got 4 runs with 2 outs. Are you kidding me? This team, I was upset that they lost, but they had just won 7 in a row. They swept the homestand. It's a good time to be a Mets fan. This team is good. Pitching is fantastic. They don't even have, like, their guys fully healthy now. Their bullpen is solid aside from last night. Man, I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Mets. I hope to keep talking about them throughout the summer. But we're going to transition to the last part of the show, the Ice Cold Take segment. Remember, the Ice Cold Take is an accurate statement backed by facts and observations that is solid in nature, similar to a block of ice, i.e., a spot-on claim. So, can the Rangers rebound next season? There is no way the Rangers can have this bad of a season 2 years in a row. So, in a way, I have high hopes for them, and I can feel the I have high hopes for them, and I can feel the optimism creeping back in right now as we speak. Every single player had a down year all at the same time this season. That's incredibly difficult to do. Just like 2 seasons ago now, when every single player had a great year all at the same time. I expect more production next year, not necessarily from every player, but the big ones like Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. The Rangers still have issues, they need to fix, but they can solve some of those simply by playing better, which we all know they are capable of doing. I can't guarantee they'll get back to cup contender status, but playoff contender? Absolutely. Yeah. Optimistic D is coming back, guys. Slowly but surely. I'm talking everybody off the ledge. We're coming back next year. We're gonna be better. I'm telling you. Have hope that Drury can make some trades, make some moves to bolster the squad. Maybe they get Perot involved. Maybe they get Offman involved. Cooley's got to get even more involved. I mean, you got to give the younger guys more responsibility. Take advantage of the guys on entry level contracts. Y- y- If they just get like Panarin and Trocheck to step it up and have better years, not to mention like JT Miller is already on your team now, and he plays to what he normally plays as, like when he first came back to the Rangers will play better because a big part of the beginning, if you remember what I said, is that the guys that were paid to be reliable were unreliable. That was one of the biggest issues the Rangers had. If they could fix that, you're going to win a lot more games just from that. And the Rangers were only a few games away from creeping into the playoffs. Would they have done any damage based on how these series have gone? I don't think so. Like Montreal squeaked out a win against Washington. Okay. Um, Ottawa's down 3-0 against Toronto, and I think Toronto looks great so far. Would the Rangers have done well against Toronto? I can't say for sure. I think Toronto's different this year. Um, Washington, maybe because it's Washington, they make it 6-game series. I don't think they beat them though this year, uh, based on how they played the Rangers this season. But if guys like Panarin and Trocheck and Lafreniere, uh, Fox even, Shesterkin. Shesterkin is a big one. Like, I think he could have a rebound season. Like, this is this defense in front of him was horrible. The worst it's ever been. So, yeah, you could go ahead and throw your $11.5 million accusations against him. It's Igor Shesterkin. Every time I've complained about him, he comes back and does something great. I swear. Like, internally, like, I never complain about him on the show because it doesn't even get to that point because when I'm complaining watching the games on my couch, the next time I see him, he's making crazy save after save and winning games for the Rangers. So I've just decided not to, you know, critique or have something to say about Shesterkin. Um, this is a different Washington team from last year. Same core plus Chikrin, Thompson, Mangiapane. Yet Logan Thompson might be injured though now. But yeah, exactly. That's a good point there, Dimitri. Yeah, Rangers have a lot of work to do this offseason. Chris Drury is going to be calling the shots again. Chikrin would have been perfect on the Rangers. That's what I'm saying, man. Exactly the type of player we need. Would have been a great pair for Fox. And they paid peanuts to get him. And I'm talking about the trade, not the contract. The contract was expensive. The Rangers couldn't do that because they didn't have the cap space. They wanted Lindgren. What a mistake that was. That's where Drury loses me. Like he's stubborn too. The stubbornness from the front office is what and the coaching staff is what bothers me. We'll have a lot more coming in the coming weeks about the Rangers. It's gonna be they did not want to trade Lindgren in a pick. Yeah, for Chikrin. Really, like that wouldn't have made the Rangers better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Oh my god. I don't know what they're smoking, man. Yeah, he's a heart and soul player. Yeah. I mean Chikrin's a goddamn awesome hockey player. Man, perfect compliment for Fox and you didn't want to swing for it. We'll have more in the coming weeks. Drury's cheap and stingy, he gets screwed over in the end. Yeah. Um, we'll have more in the coming weeks. The Rangers have to do a big coaching search. You got to prioritize youth, man. If I'll say this, if the Edmonton Oilers can hire, if the Edmonton Oilers can hire a first year head coach, twice in 3 years with the uncertainty of McDavid and Draisaitl if they're gonna leave, the Rangers could absolutely hire a first-year head coach. 2 times in 3 years, and they worked out. "Oh, wait, we're not gonna be as good." What do you mean? What do you mean? How? You don't know that. Give a younger guy a shot. I hate this dinosaur mentality. "Oh, we gotta get older. Look at John Tortorella. Let's get John Tortorella back here. Give me Joel Quenneville. Guy hasn't coached in years." You just tried it with Laviolette. It didn't work. You had one good season. Stop going with the short-term fix, man. Go with the long-term fix. You need a guy that's gonna be coaching here for like 10 years. Don't look for Mike Sullivan. Look for the next Mike Sullivan. Don't look for John Cooper. Look for the next John Cooper. Like if John Cooper or Rod Brindamore becomes available, and the Rangers like go after him. Let's say the Rangers hire. This is a completely hypothetical. The Rangers hire John Cooper. I'll be happy, but I'm gonna laugh my ass off because it's just that's what the Rangers do. Is just spend money in free agency. Don't build from within. It's the Rangers motto. That's how they're built. They've never done that in their organization's history. Never. That's why they only have one cup in like 80 something years. That's what it all boils down to. Putting this out there, I think Drury is lining up the Ducks to go after Connor McDavid in the next offseason if he becomes a UFA. Yeah, if he better do that. You're not going to be able to do that if Zibanejad's on here, though. I'm telling you that right now. If you don't have Zibanejad's contract off the books, Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel is a no-go. If you are smoking some serious stuff, if you're prioritizing Mika Zibanejad over Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel, I'm sorry, man. I don't care what Zibanejad has done in the past. That's Connor freaking McDavid and Jack effing Eichel. Stanley Cup winners. Or McDavid was pretty damn close. One game away from being a Stanley Cup winner. Conn Smythe winner. That's a Conn Smythe winner. There you go. Next best thing. Man. A lot of work the Rangers got to do in the offseason, but that's going to do it for us on Ice Cold Takes. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.